This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this!
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about the British sitcom Red Dwarf here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark and I am one of your regular hosts. And with me at this time is Kurt. Hello, Kurt.
Hello.
And Carl. Hello, Carl.
Hello.
And today is one of our specials between Series 4 and Series 5 where we're looking at Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg. Because we like to look at weird obscurities when we do these specials.
Wait a minute, why am I here then?
Because you wanted to be.
Oh, right, okay.
You do the occasional one. Later on, it's going to be my first episode that I'm not on, Kurt.
Yes, I've heard this.
I know. Matt's doing the British Empire and I didn't want to do it.
Fair enough.
To be fair, I wasn't on the ones with the documentary either, because I haven't seen the episodes they were talking about.
Yeah, that's true. And we will see them at some point in the future.
Yeah. It'll be a while, because, you know, we do quite a lot of specials in between the series.
Yeah. But I still think one of the specials should be a proper watch of the first episode you haven't seen, with us watching you, I think.
What, like a reaction video?
Aye.
We can try. We don't have a YouTube channel yet, but we can get one.
Yeah, so it shouldn't be too hard to set up. It should be easy enough to do.
It's just a Zoom recording at the end of the day, isn't it? So
True. But that's not what we're doing today. We're doing Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg, which was a Can't Cook, Won't Cook kind of parody crossover type situation. And so the show Can't Cook, Won't Cook was a show where someone who can't cook and someone who won't cook are challenged by a celebrity chef who tutors them to cook something. And then the people who nominated their can't and won't do like a little kind of judge at the end. And I did watch an episode of Can't Cook, Won't Cook to get a little perspective on it. It was the one that was broadcast on the 9th of October, 1997. But it wasn't presented by Ainsley. It was presented by Kevin Woodford. So it's a 24-minute show. And on the show I watched, they cooked a supreme of chicken with mojo sauce. The chicken had like a goat's cheese summit or other going on. And they did basil fried potatoes. And yeah, the winner won a food processor.
did you enjoy it is the question.
I really did. So the winners won a food processor, which, you know, is a bit shit. The losers got a bottle of champagne and a meal out.
I'd rather lose.
Yeah, I definitely want the fucking champagne. But it kind of gave me a background on the format, so...
I tell you what, though, at that work, every year, you know, I've worked in the same place for 15 years, and it changes depending on the year, but there's often a time where they'll give you a free bottle of wine or something like that for Christmas, and it's normally a fairly decent bottle, you know, definitely, you know, drinkable, but I'm not a huge fan of that. And my colleague who I've worked with for a lot of years basically comes to me every year and goes, "Do you want your lager?" And it's like, yeah. And she goes to the shop, gets me some lager, and I do a swap. Done.
Brilliant. So the theme was a bit like a sketch show for me. And then the host chats with the contestants, reveals and explains the dish, takes the guests through the recipe as they cook together with a chat about food, and there's plenty of laughs at the ineptitude of the people attempting to cook. They then present the finished dishes with their own style and compare it to the professional, and then the taste test with both of the nominators, and the chef feeds them in a blindfold. And then they both have to say which is best, and then the chef decides if it is a tie. The prize is behind the set, and like I say, it was a food processor. Nice, simple, daytime telly from the 90s.
It was probably one of the first ones I remember, because the BBC have a habit of developing a daytime show which just seems to dominate. Like, people really get into it. Before this, it was Ready, Steady, Cook, which spun off into Can't Cook, Won't Cook. And then we got into like our property shows, like our bargain hunts and things like that. They always come up with something that, because this, and like Changing Rooms and Ground Force. But I remember this being like big at the time.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And I think the celebrity chefs were some of the most famous people in the country at the time. I'd forgotten about Kevin Woodford, but no one's forgotten Ainsley.
No. Well, I remember being on holiday in France, and I put the BBC World Service on, and it literally was like 6 o'clock, Ready, Steady, Cook. 6:30, Can't Cook, Won't Cook. 7 o'clock, the news. 7:30, Ready, Steady, Cook. It just like, it basically repeated that. I don't even think it was repeats. They just went through the show like all day with occasional like EastEnders or something.
Yeah, it was quite the phenomenon. And it makes sense that if they were going to do a weird-ass parody crossover with a daytime telly show, it would be this at the time, because it was broadcast on the 14th of February 1998 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, I remember this well. I remember sitting down and watching the entire night and just really enjoying it.
Yeah, I watched it too. I was at university at the time, and it was a really special deal at the time. It was a whole night of Red Dwarf stuff. They called it Red Dwarf Night, nice and simple. And it was introduced by Patrick Stewart, and the lineup was Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg, the TV broadcast of some Smeg-Ups, which had only been on VHS previously, Universe Challenge, which is University Challenge kind of parody crossover, and then a documentary called Red Dwarf A to Z, and then they finished with Gunman of the Apocalypse. Hell of a night.
Well, yeah, and especially the final episode, Mark, for you. I mean, it was actually, I would have been just turned 18 because it was the week after my birthday. So again, I remember it really vividly, and it was such a great thing to see Sir Patrick Stewart on doing the introduction, and that's something I remember vividly. And I would say that this one we're doing, Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg, is memorable as well. I mean, obviously, Gunman the Apocalypse is just the episode. So, but yeah, I remember the night. It was a great night and had that kind of the comic relief kind of feel to it. Where you've just got one special kind of thing, and you'd have various different things on comic relief with different like shows or EastEnders turning up doing a dance number or something like that. But to have it a dedicated Red Dwarf Night was amazing, and something you just can't imagine really happening right now. Or it was such an unusual thing to have a night dedicated with so many specials in it.
It was really, really special. And when you think about 1998 being the 10th anniversary, we're on quite a significantly later anniversary now, but it was a big, big deal at the time. And when you actually look at the chronology, it was broadcast between Series 7 and Series 8. So there wasn't actually that much BBC stuff left.
It's a weird one to think of, is that it kind of timed out just right, because if it was if the 10th anniversary was happening before 7, it would have been a massive pain for them to have built the sets and everything like that for these nights, especially say everything's taking place on the Red Dwarf set in this circumstance. But if it was between sort of 6 and 7, I can imagine it would have been really tricky for the BBC to pull off. But because the Red Dwarf was in production, it's like, yes, we can do this. And it's, as much as I really enjoyed the night, you can tell that the BBC producers are like, we could do this cheap.
Yeah.
You say that, but they did put some effort into it. The old school BBC Two logo, they created unique ones with the scutters involved, which I really, really liked. I thought that was brilliant.
Wonder if they used Quantel for that.
Maybe they did use Quantel. Is that our latest running gag, Kurt?
Yeah.
But I just think that Red Dwarf Night was such a phenomenon, and obviously we are going to take a look at Universe Challenge and Red Dwarf A to Z at a later point on the podcast. We're definitely not doing Red Dwarf Night in one episode, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, we might do a Red Dwarf Night for us, but maybe not for a podcast.
Yeah, just chill, hang out, post-COVID, kind of. Yeah, that'd be well good, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, good idea. So, that's the intro. Shall we get on with talking about Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg?
Aye.
Let's do it.
So, we open up with a lovely little intro from your busy mate, Patty S. Kurt.
Yeah, love the tracks.
I'm not calling him Patty S ever again. Patrick Stewart, legend. And he tells us about 1988 and the background of Red Dwarf, and then runs through the evening's stuff that we're going to see that we just did. And there's a Trek reference, which is great, but the thing that made me happy was that Patrick fucking Stewart did the Rimmer salute.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the legend? Because he's brought up a lot of time. What is the legend? Was it that he was annoyed with it initially because he was doing Next Generation and he heard there was some other show that was he thought it was taking the mick or something until he watched it and then he fell in love with it or something like that. He didn't like it to start with, wasn't it? That was the legend.
Yeah, I think that's, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it was more that he'd heard about the show and been a while before he actually got to see it. And then when he had seen it and someone had shown him it, it was like, right. And then as we've come to know what Sir Patrick Stewart is like, you know, he's very a humorous person. I mean, going back to the whole Star Trek thing, which is interesting in itself with the Next Generation, is that Sir Patrick Stewart said that at the very beginning in season 1 of Star Trek Next Generation, he was kind of like, we are here to work, not here to have a good time. And then by the 7th season, the final season, he was the ultimate joker on the show, along with Jonathan Frakes. So he quickly realised that you know a family was being built around that. Jonathan Frakes has obviously been a great one for that. And if you watch any of the new Star Trek Picard stuff and the documentaries behind the scenes, you just see them just having a great ball. So, you know, I think that first season, he was probably renowned for being quite uptight, but, you know, he's obviously, you know, let his hair down.
Well,
a little bit, and away you go. So, yeah, I think there may be a bit of that, but then obviously he's done things like Family Guy and stuff like that. So
I'll just tell you quickly, Kurt, my favourite Star Trek joke I've ever seen was a friend of mine who was a big Next Generation fan, bought the uniform, and he walked on and it was very tight, and my friend's not a small lad, but I think you'll get this without seeing it. He walked on stage, stood with his stomach stuck in and his chest pulled out, like the heroic pose, and he pointed at himself and went, 90, and then he let his gut completely fall out and sort of like bent over and he went, 95.
Brilliant.
There was like 2 Trek fans in the audience and like, yeah, no, that's right.
I think Patrick Stewart is a good sport, and you can understand why if he heard that there was this show that was taking the piss, he might be quite cross. But like any decent human being, he didn't make his final judgment until he actually saw what it was in person and then became a fan, and that's fucking great. So Patrick Stewart is the man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we get the normal Can't Cook, Won't Cook theme, but it has new titles with a moon, with a knife and fork, and Starbug going past. And was this okay in 1998, or was it really fucking amateurish? Because it looks, with my 2021 eyes, really fucking amateurish.
It's pretty naff still, yeah. I mean, if like you say, with the timeline, like, you know, we're between series 7 and 8, so we know what's capable and what like the BBC title department can do, and obviously they've, like you said, they made the BBC Two symbols into scutters and stuff like that. It does look like the title sequence is like, it's like they ran into an office and went, "Look, can you do this? It's supposed to go out in like 3 hours."
And they've kind of gone, well, we've got a Starbug plate of something we've already done before. Let's just fire that on and do what we can with it.
and put some word art.
Yeah, it screams budget to me.
I don't care. just anything Red Dwarf, even if it's naff, makes me happy. So it opens up with Starbug, and there's a kitchen in the back. Ainsley Harriott teleports in to canned applause. He introduces himself and says that he was once a Gelf.
Yeah, this is the confusing thing almost about this. Is it in is it in character or not? Because the other four are in character. 5, sorry, are in character. But Ainsley's like, yeah, I starred in an episode of Red Dwarf. And then at one point they put a credit that when they refer to Dwayne Dibley as Danny. So it's a bit of a mess as sort of. And
Did they call him Danny? I didn't spot that.
Yeah. So it's almost like, did they tell the cast, you're in character, but just didn't bother to tell Ainsley?
Yeah, it's a bit of a wobble, because he then introduces a scene from Red Dwarf, which was the scene that he was in. It's the scene from Emohawk, where the Kinatawawi chief negotiates for the oxygeneration unit, and the crew, well, the price is Lister marrying and I tell you what, it's one of my favourite fucking scenes in all of Red Dwarf ever.
It's such a good series. I'm really looking forward to when we get to it. It's such a high peak in the show.
I endlessly quoted this scene with my brother as we were growing up. There's no way I'm going down to Mossbros for anybody who is less attractive than my own armpit after 20 games of table tennis. It's like still these memories from like 1996. They're so vivid in my head because it's not like what it is now. You've got access to fucking everything on Netflix and Amazon. If you got a VHS, you watched that VHS a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just such happy memories of Red Dwarf for me that my brother and I watched these so much that we'd be walking down the streets and we'd be able to tell you the whole script. We'd go from start to finish almost. And this is why Red Dwarf Night meant a lot to me as well, because I then moved to Manchester from Wolverhampton and shared this experience as an adult with my university friends. And we got some cans in, didn't go up the Students' Union until really, really late that night. We got hammered watching Red Dwarf Night in the kitchen because, it was one of those student digs where it didn't have a living room. It kind of had a kitchen dining room thing. And we all just watched Red Dwarf together and then went up the PAV, which was the name of our Students' Union, and just so many happy memories of Red Dwarf. And Red Dwarf Night was fucking ace. I was probably 4 cans in by this point.
I don't even remember noticing at the time it was the 10th anniversary. I just thought it was a Red Dwarf Night that they just decided to put on. I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. Yeah. This is my show.
I think the same. I don't think I remember it being a 10th anniversary. I just remember it being, like you say, like just a celebration of Red Dwarf more than anything else.
Yep, me 3. That's 3 of us. I don't think they emphasised that it was the 10th anniversary very much.
No. Because I don't even think Patrick Stewart says it, does he? He just says it, welcome to the Red Dwarf Night. Did he say 10th anniversary? I don't know.
I think it's that there's a little on-screen graphic at the beginning that says it's the 10th anniversary. And that's kind of it. But maybe they were doing it when they were like making the continuity announcement saying it was a 10-year anniversary and things like that.
Well, like I say, I was probably 4 cans in the first time I watched this. And 6 cans and I'm anyone's, so,
6 can Adams.
It's 4 can Adams these days. I've not got the tolerance I once had. Anyway, Ainsley cracks a gag and then introduces the concept to a jaunty theme. And in my notes, I just put face, which Ainsley's face. Just Ainsley. I love Ainsley.
He does it a few times during the episode, doesn't he? Where he just like looks at the camera or he's like he's got a great face.
He should be creepy, but he's actually really charming, and I don't understand why. Just the answer is to everything is Ainsley.
I mean, he's got a comedy background. He did do like all the comedy clubs and stuff like that in the 80s and early 90s. Because I've seen him pop up in stuff like Smith and Jones and Hale and Pace and things like that as an actor. And he used to do an act, I think it was called the Calypso Twins, and he did ukulele songs, like comedy ukulele songs. So
Brilliant.
I part of me thinks that, and you kind of see it in a few moments with some of the others, that he's been on stage or at least on bills with, Craig Charles and Robert Llewellyn and people like that before. There's a couple of moments where it's like, yeah, they've known each other a long time.
There's definitely a chemistry that suggests you're absolutely right there. Yeah. So he introduces Crichton, who enters with his groinal attachment attached, and Ainsley asks who he's bringing along, and it's Lister. Ainsley laughs a lot at Crichton's intro, which I think, again, is exactly what you were talking about, Carl.
Yeah. There's some in-jokes going on there between people, or some unspoken jokes. But one of my favourite things in this whole thing is the groinal attachment and the fact it does work. It's not something that they've done, with camera trickery when they filmed an episode where it's being used. Robert Llewellyn's got this thing on. It does look like it's put over the round his waist there's a suction on something on there, but it actually works when he switches the attachments on it.
It definitely counts as a practical effect, and I'm all about the practical effects.
It does make me wonder if this is scripted. I think the intros are a bit scripted.
It says it's written by Rob Grant, Doug Naylor, and Paul Alexander.
Yeah.
So for me, I think there's definitely aspects of it that I wouldn't say script. I think probably loosely improv.
Yeah.
I think it's like hit these marks at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that because it really does feel very natural, and I think there's definitely some ad-libs in there with people that are really comfortable in the characters that they've been playing for 10 years.
Yeah, and so there's an obvious kind of like everybody here has done live performance before. Like I can imagine especially with Ainsley, like Can't Cook, Won't Cook, and Ready, Steady, Cook, because I've been in the audience for some Food Network shows before. And
amazing.
Yeah, and it was something else entirely. But I got to meet Sarah Green, which was quite cool.
Jealous.
But they film so many a day.
Yeah.
And so Ainsley must be like, it's almost like must be like a marathon performance-wise for Ainsley to do like so many shows and maintain that level of energy. It's probably why they hired him in the first place, because he is just a ball of energy.
I mean, talking about the writer, I know we're going to get into it. I'm just thinking out aloud here, but there's definitely things that's been written that they're going to hit. So things like the cow and the book aspect, things like that, where you don't come up with that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So there's definitely elements within each section that they're hitting, and I think that some of like Craig Charles when he's doing some of the drinking stuff, I think that's just like when you get an opportunity, have a drink and jump on it, or you've got the fat, let's have a drink of that kind of thing.
I think it shows great trust by the writers in their actors to allow ad-libbing, which definitely made this funnier. Not to say that the writing wasn't any good, because it's great, but like you say, there's definite points where that's clearly been written, but I also think there's definitely points where it's clearly ad-libbed, and that's stayed in. Yeah. So it shows a confidence in the writing, and it shows a confidence in the actors playing characters that they know and love, and they've kind of spent 10 years of their life doing.
There is a moment. Does Crichton stumble over a line at the beginning? Is there something where he's trying to get a joke and he can't get it out?
Yes, because that's one of the moments I see where it becomes apparent to me that they've known each other a while. Yeah. He says, if underpants could talk, they'd... And
yes, that's it.
You could just see his eyes just went, no, it's not there.
Yeah, apparently I can't. He says something like that, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's like, they can't. I think he said they were stunned into silence. He managed to pull something out of it, but like Ainsley hugs him in a "it's all right, love" kind of way.
So Lister enters, and he gets Ainsley confused with James Herriot, and then asks if he got ribbed about his initials. Crichton explains that AH is short for arsehole, and Ainsley uses an electric knife to cut off his groinal attachment.
What I absolutely adore about this, by the way, is the way that Crichton goes, It's just like totally crying. Wait, sorry, it's a home.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
fun.
very Smee-He, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've got their regular jokes that reward regular viewers. And I think another one is, James Herriot getting confused with Ainsley Harriott. It's going back to Wilfrid Shakespeare, isn't it? That these are regular Red Dwarf jokes.
Yeah. Because initially I was like, is AH short for arsehole? I've never heard it as that, but I thought, well, fair enough. It's that's the gag they're going with there. But I kind of forgot about the gag just from the sight of Ainsley taking what's the word? Meat chicken knife, automated
Electric knife.
Yeah, electric knife to Crichton's groinal socket, chopping the end off, and then pulling the rest off anyway.
So this electric knife again reminded me of my childhood. My mother bought one of those things and then got scared of it. So she would do all the cooking, and then at the end she'd be like to my dad, "Can you come and cook the meat, Chris?" And so she'd bought this electric knife that she never used. And I love that woman. She's one of a kind. And just whenever I see one of those, it reminds me of my mum. And then unfortunately, as I say, whenever I see one of those, it reminds me of my mum. When he cut off the groinal attachment, it looked like an erection.
Yes.
So there I was with happy thoughts. Oh, my mum. And then there was an erect kind of simulation of a penis. And I was like, oh.
Oh, man. What I like, I know it's later on, but he's obviously using a Hoover that's underneath the counter when he tries to clean the workstation up later on with it, because the camera never goes back to him. It only kind of quickly goes back because he's purely pulling it from underneath the counter, and he's using it. But yeah, it's and you can just see the erection at the same time.
That was clearly deliberate that it was supposed to look like an erection as well.
Yeah.
So Ainsley introduces Rimmer, who refuses to shake hands, and there's another James Herriot gag. There's a jab at harvesters for some reason. I have no problem with harvesters. And then Rimmer says he's bringing along the cat.
Yeah. Initially I was like, oh, harvester, that's quite an old reference. It's like, no, it isn't. There's one near my house that I've eaten in. It's...
Harvesters is the kind of thing that my dad would go to because he never eats anything that's anything resembling interesting. I don't think I've been to a harvester since I was about 18, probably.
See, there was one across the road from where I worked, and that was kind of like the end of the week hangout spot before going out for the weekend. And yeah, so that's... But I think I ate in there a few times, and it was always fairly expensive. But...
Yeah, it's just bland to me, a harvester.
Yeah.
I'd have a pint in a harvester, but I don't want their food.
So one of the things I've actually noticed, I've got this playing in the background while we're talking, is Craig Charles's dreads stuck on his head with a strip?
Maybe.
Probably. A lot of the time, I think this is clearly done on the cheap.
Yeah.
But I really don't think it matters because it's funny. But you can spot stuff like maybe the dreads aren't on point.
Yeah.
And maybe they do interesting camera angles with the Hoover so you don't see what's going on the counter. I don't care. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's just strange. It's my favourite Rimmer suit as well, this suit.
It's a good suit.
It's a really good suit. It's series sort of 6 and 7. Like I said, it's such a high point. Everything looks great.
Yeah.
Apart from the CG in 7, but we'll come to that when we come to it.
Well, yes, indeed.
Well, I think you're hitting with the fact of the dreads, because obviously post here they're always sort of connected up, because there's that joke in I think there's in one of the Smeg ups where he says, "Oh, it's like being back in jail," kind of thing. After he spent a bit of time in jail. So the fact that he's having to sort of add them on, whereas I think have they always been pinned on? Has he always had that? I can't even remember if it's his real hair originally or not.
I've seen it's in one of the coffee table books that come with it, that there's a picture of him cutting them off.
Yeah,
and the slogan for the picture was, because you can't hear it, but Craig Charles is saying "at f***ing last."
Yeah.
Because he hated having them on. So I think he grew them initially, and then there were probably extensions after that.
Yeah. So Cat enters and does his trademark slide and spin, which always pops me. He then uses a frying pan to rehash the "how am I looking" gag, which again I am all about. I don't care. Good gag.
Yeah, he's so slick in his movement. We've talked about this before, but Danny John Jules just glides.
Yeah.
He does.
And then just after we see Ainsley's tongue, which I don't know if you've made note about, but it's one of his Ainsley's trademarks almost. Is he flips out his tongue? It's very lizard-like. This sort of triangular tongue that comes out.
He's a unique man, is our Ainsley, and I'm all about him. I love him. A friend of mine is a professional wrestler, and he's quite a kind of comedy character, and his finisher is a clothesline called the Ainsley Lariat, which I'm all about.
Yeah, I know you mean that. Yeah, it's such a great name, that is.
So Ainsley introduces Kachansky, who lost the Ippy Dippy, and she's the taster. Now, I do have a bit of an issue with some 90s ick here. She says she won't be tasting anything as she had a stick of celery last week. Now, that's nearly kind of probably a bulimia joke. And I don't know, body dysmorphia isn't funny to me. No. Did you find it offensive, or am I being a bit of a huffy queen?
I didn't find it particularly. It didn't offend me, but I just didn't find it funny.
No, I think the difficulty with Red Dwarf around this era is they don't know what to do with Kachansky, full stop. And this actually, for me, watching this special, it's highlighted so much more, because it's like she basically just reacts to what they're doing the entire scene, and it's like, and then they've got certain. I know we'll come into certain jokes that's mentioned and stuff like that, and it's like, all right, so you've brought her out to react and to taste the food, and then to be sick. It's like, all right, okay. Another aspect of this is where I struggle with, you're talking about the fact that it's obviously on the set and stuff like that, is that this definitely feels like, for me, it's the way that Chloe Annette is kind of in between 7 and 8, because of the hairstyle that she's got. She's got longer hair than what she did in the thing. So this is done obviously after the season 7's been run, and maybe it's considerably some time afterwards as well. So the set's still there, but it's still like, there's definitely time passed between, episode 6 of season 7 and this actually happening.
Yeah, it almost felt like she was a spare part, because in Can't Cook, Won't Cook, there isn't that role. It's the two people who nominate that are the tasters, like we established at the start. So it is just, what the fuck can we do with Chloe Annette? Let's make some bulimia gags. I mean, ugh.
Yeah, and then that funny, like, kind of slapstick, which I know Red Dwarf has its, like, different humour, and there is some elements of, like, farce and all that, but that slapstick one just doesn't land. It's like, that is not Red Dwarf. That's not what Red Dwarf is. That's too cartoony.
So the way it happens is that she asks if her bum looks big, and Lister pervs at her for too long, which again is a little bit icky. But when she hits him, it reminded me of when they had the epic fights in Bottom. And Bottom is a completely different show that I will laugh at. I will howl at Bottom's ridiculous slapstick fights. But that's not really what I'd expect from Red Dwarf. You're right.
I immediately thought of Vic and Bob.
Yeah, same sort of humour.
When the sound effect goes off, I was pretty certain it's the same sound effect when they used to do the frying pan cricket bat brawl or whatever they used to do, where they used to just hit each other. That's the same sound effect. But like you say, it's completely not Red Dwarf in its humour. Like I don't think in any episodes of Red Dwarf they made any jokes about her being, bulimic essentially and things like that. Of course they made jokes about Lister perving over over Kachansky. But in this instance, it's just it just felt forced and just not very funny.
In 8, obviously there's still that sexual stuff that they bring in. In 7, they kind of like look at her with like the typical class aspect of like she likes equestrian sports and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I'll go to the opera, and it's more that the lady doesn't fit into this class. It's like a mixture of 1 being a female and 2 being a class thing. So they've tried doing that, but that to me just doesn't really fit with what they're doing here.
And you see on things like I've seen online on things like Reddit and things like that, people go, "Why did Chloe Annette leave? Why did Chloe Annette leave?" It's not like she had a huge amount to do.
No.
In especially in the early couple of years. So she probably could have looked at it and just gone, you know what, there's not a great deal for me to be going on with here. And you almost get the feeling that not that it made it better, but it made it easier for Doug Naylor to write it if there wasn't Kachansky there.
Yeah, and I think that's something we'll see in 7 and 8 as well, that there's some good stuff with Kachansky, but most of it's what the fucking hell are we going to do with Kachansky?
Yeah, and just a slight side note, the thing I think we're going to find really interesting is when the partnership breaks up and the writing team break up and the change in humour and the change in style. But that's for another day. But yeah, it's like you're right, Kachansky. There is some great moments with Kachansky and some moments that people often forget about, which are really, really good. But it's too much of a noose around the neck a lot of the times, where they just try and fit her in and it doesn't really work.
Yeah. So then we get "Let's rattle those pots and pans," which is the classic line from Can't Cook, Won't Cook, but Kat halts the proceedings and refuses to team with Rimmer and flounces off. Then there's a knock on the waste disposal. Crichton and Kachansky open it, and it's Dwayne Dibley who thought that the waste disposal was a lift. He spots Kachansky and says she's hot, and then Dwayne is added to Rimmer's team. And I'm all about this. The cat wouldn't have been as funny as Dwayne Dibley was in this situation.
See, I remember watching this episode at the time, and when we decided to do this, it's probably the first time that there's moments, and I'm sure all of us will agree that there are certain moments that you remember. But I, for the life of me, thought, when I saw Kat come on screen, I was like, how does he change to Dwayne Dibley? How does that happen? Because I was thinking, there must be something to do to make it happen. And it's like, well, he just walks off. I was like, oh, all right, okay. I honestly thought there was more to it than that, but yeah, I think it's a genius move to have one of the outstanding, memorable characters in the show to come back like that. I think it's a really good idea, which again plays with continuity, but that doesn't matter. I think it's meta in its own sense, and it's a bit of fun at the end of the day. So I'm more than happy with it.
Yeah.
It's very catty as well that he just went, no, don't want to do it, and walked off.
It's very actual cat-like as well. The amount of times I've put my cat in front of a bowl of food and she's looked at me and then sauntered off. It's so good,
And the interaction he had with Kachansky, because I think this would be the first time that they'd have met, wouldn't it? Because he's not in 7. It could have been ick, but it's almost charming.
That's a question then. Because the only time that she is aware of Dwayne Dibley in 8, but she doesn't ever see him until then.
Does that mean that Can't Smeg Won't Smeg is canon?
Anything's possible, Red Dwarf. Everything's canon and nothing's canon.
Yeah, nothing's fucking canon. As long as it's funny. And that's fine with me. Ainsley asks what they've got, and Rimmer gives him a list: a space weevil, some urine recycle wine, a mimian bladderfish, some rice pudding, an insole, a pot noodle, and Caroline Carmen's ear, which popped me. Fucking Caroline Carmen's ear. That's so obscure.
Yeah, and that it's all right because it's been in the fridge.
To be fair, if someone gave me that as a list of ingredients and cook something, I think I'd have thrown the same tantrum that Ainsley has. And Ainsley's great here. His hissy fit is magnificent.
Yeah, it made me laugh because in the same way that Kurt couldn't remember how the cat turned into Dwayne Dibley, I was like, I couldn't remember. I was like, how do they get out of having to use all this stuff? And the fact it is just Ainsley chucks it in the bin.
Yeah.
And this is the point where Craig Charles pulls his hat off, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Which is a blatantly ad-libbed moment.
So Ainsley has actually bought something, and it's actually a really, really nice-looking curry that I would be very happy to eat. And so he starts instructing the cooks. Dwayne gets a bit excited with a knife, and Ainsley's shake of the basmati rice into the pan is kind of mimicked by the boys, and the same again with salt and turmeric, and Crichton uses his groinal attachment to stir.
Yeah, it's... a testament to Ainsley Harriott that he's managing to keep this under control.
So Ainsley doesn't corpse, but did you notice that Chris Barry was really fucking close to corpsing at one point?
Oh yeah, they're all on the brink. Like you can see, they cut to Chloe Annette at one point, and when he's throwing the tantrum, and she's gone.
Yeah,
she's trying to hold it, but it's not happening. There's moments where Craig Charles is just not. Yeah, he's Craig Charles.
Yeah, it just feels really natural for something that is kind of a satire and a thrown together thing for the lols. I think they're all like real life friends at this point, including Ainsley, because why would he have got the job as the Kinatawari? He's a fucking TV chef. He must be mates with some of these guys, right?
I don't know if he would have been a chef at the time, but no, it was only a couple of years ago, really. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, he'd have been right in the middle of the absolute popularity of Ready Steady Cook.
Yeah, but I don't know, he would have. Well, he's probably, like you say, you bring your mates in, don't you? If they know Ainsley, because Ainsley is a very tall man, if they need someone to play the Kinatawawi, it's like, right, who do we know that's tall and won't mind being caked in makeup for 8 hours? And somebody must have gone, well, Ainsley's probably, with him being as positive as he is, like, will you do it? Sure. I can imagine it's really easy to hire Ainsley Harriott to do something if he's in the mood.
Yeah. And by the way, just because you mentioned about the knife, I know there's more stuff to this to come. There's no way on earth that this show would ever be made now. The sheer amount of knife work that's involved with John Jules doing the things he's doing with those knives is just incredible. It's just like...
Yeah, he's clearly actually a very good cook and a dab hand when it comes to chopping stuff.
Yeah.
But I love the contrast with the way Lister just smacks it and then Dwayne is like dead good because you wouldn't expect it.
It made me wonder because there's a bit where they're first initially pouring something in a pan and Chris Barry he's doing the dance and he's pouring it in the pan, but after he's finished, he flips the pan. The bowl that he's had the ingredient in, he chucks it in the air, but it looks like he's going to catch it, but it cuts away. So it makes me think that he's had a bit of a flash moment, and they've had to go, it's a bit too flash for Rimmer. We're going to have to cut away before he does it.
Do you think? Because this is something I was thinking about watching it as well. There's a lot of moments the way there's a lot of laughter that's happening that's off screen, and the way that it's cut in, it's almost like we're trying to really tightly edit things that we don't want them to see. Yeah. You know what I mean? That is just, we can't show that on TV.
I think it would have been amazing being in the live audience for this. I think you would have just been rolling in the aisles because it's funny enough as the cut it is, but I think with these basically bunch of mates having a laugh, I don't think I'd have stopped laughing.
I'd love to have seen the full unedited, because that they must have broke character multiple times during all of this.
Yeah, that's why I think there's maybe moments where, argument's sake, Craig Charles is looking at the audience, pulling a face or something, you know what I mean, like that, and they've not cut to that in the edit. They've gone, well, we can't show that, or something's happened off screen. It's that's too much. We can't do that. because it does seem at one point so frantic. You're like, what are the audience actually laughing at?
Yeah.
Because there's moments like that. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what they're laughing at. So there's a lot going on with it.
It reminds me of the polymorph scene where they're laughing so hard at them tearing off Lister's underwear. Just that amount I think this amount of chaos, everybody in the audience is probably laughing at something different.
Yeah.
To the point where it's just carrying over.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess.
Yeah. So there's lots of Ainsley dancing as he puts stuff in the pot. There's a gag about tossing. They add garlic. When they're cutting the chicken, Crichton's groinal attachment malfunctions. And there's lots of stuff going on. But the thing I wanted to talk about is Dwayne throws salt over his shoulder when he spills some salt. And it hits Rimmer. And then Rimmer coughs. Should a hard light hologram cough when he gets salt in him?
I think it's because he's projected to be as real as possible.
If you get salt in that light be like, it's not a nice thing.
You mentioned there as well Ainsley's tossing joke. The look he gives to camera.
Oh, he's just Ainsley, and I'm all about Ainsley.
This is a man who blatantly knows every dirty innuendo he can think of, but he knows he's not on daytime television during this.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I can make a tossing joke and actually look dead in the camera like, that's right, I made a tossing joke.
Yeah.
He's loving it, but I didn't notice the salt throw. I was kind of sort of taken aback with, like, it's so chaotic. The thing is, I noticed as well is Robert Llewellyn can move quite a bit in that suit. There's one point where he's just bouncing up and down. And it's just ridiculous. It's just utter chaos.
I really like the salt thing because it's established that the cat is not superstitious whatsoever. He doesn't have faith. Whereas it makes perfect sense that a character like Dwayne Dibley will do these old wives' tale type things because he's a very, very different version of the cat. And how is it that there's something that fucking subtle in Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in it. There's one lovely bit of camera work where they cut to Chloe Annette looking scared, and as she looks scared, a big plume of steam covers her face. It's obviously like depth perception, but it just generally looks like she's caught in a war zone. She looks terrified, and then this massive plume of steam just engulfs her.
And also, I think what's interesting with you saying about that Robert Llewellyn is like jumping up and down, but he's tossing the frying pan. But I think it's only because he can't physically move his arm up and down. So I think he's like doing that to like create that moment and actually make it jump up out of the frying pan. Meanwhile, at the same time, pulling these funny faces.
Yeah. It becomes more apparent when you're watching them that Danny John Jules and Chris Barry actually want to win and do it properly. When then you look over and Robert Llewellyn's got Craig Charles, who's just chaos just chaos in a ball.
Yeah. It's a really lovely kind of combo of their real personality and the characters they play here that's just charming, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Craig Charles, Lister, I'm just going to use the actors' names. I can't keep the character thing, but
Craig Lister.
Dave
Charles.
Dave Charles is good. Throws something at Ainsley that hits him right in the face.
Yeah.
And again, I think that goes back to the friendship thing. They're clearly mates, otherwise he wouldn't be taking liberties like that.
Right after that, though, he's been like the cheeky chappy, like looking, going, oops, I hit him, oops.
Yeah, you can really tell that once he's hit him, he's like, I didn't really mean to hit him.
So when they add the curry paste, Dwayne does really, really well. And then Lister eats the paste. Another gag from when Lister was cooking with the Shami kebab thing. They add chicken stock and Dwayne can't gyrate, which I think is wonderful. Lister drinks the chicken stock. And then when they do a cucumber, they both do really, really well. They like cut the seeds out really well. It's I'm living and loving this.
Yeah, I love the fact that Daddy John Jules just completely forgets he's Dwayne Dibley and then keeps showing his skill with flipping the cucumber.
It's the way like he keeps going over and spinning it and then looking back and going, yeah, I'm going to go back. Yeah, and then Craig Charles joins him as well, which is great. Yeah, and I just think it's brilliant. And obviously the list of character, you can imagine like sort of, the team going, right, Craig, just drink or eat anything that you get given.
Yeah.
Because that is a recurring gag right through the whole thing.
Yeah, he does it with the coconut milk as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I think watching this, I cook a lot more like Lister does than Dwayne does.
I've got it in front of me as it says as we're recording. Whenever Craig Charles goes to drink or eat something, it's not I'm going to pick this up and drink it. It's I'm going to snatch it out of Robert Llewellyn's hands and down it. It's like you get the feeling that Crichton would be doing much better on his own.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing the same as Carl actually as well. I'm watching bits of it, but I've just seen the bit when he starts to burn the rice. He says, "You're supposed to be a professional."
Well, what is different to Can't Cook, Won't Cook is that there's clearly a plot here, because then while they're chopping tomatoes, Rimmer distracts Ainsley and then Dwayne switches his pan for Ainsley's behind his back. So that's obviously something that has been written. That can't have been ad-libbed.
Oh, this is the thing, is they bring up the thing on screen that Ainsley genuinely doesn't realise what's happened. And I think his reaction is right. They've just decided.
Yeah, Danny John Jules pulls him to one side, doesn't he? It's like starts whispering to him. And it's whether or not they know that they're going to do that at some point, and Danny John Jules is going, right, I think we should maybe swap now. See, I think that
was the plan, that it was a rib on Ainsley. I think that's a level of ad-lib that might have pissed off the writers if that had been an ad-lib. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it's again that improv thing. At some point, see if you can swap something. Yeah, and then they've gone, right, let's see if we can do it. And Danny John Jules has gone, I've got an idea, let's do it now, kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's probably what's happened.
And I love it where Ainsley's clearly genuinely surprised by the quality of the rice. And he doesn't actually, and as you say, he doesn't know about the switch, but then obviously clocks it. And he's like, it's just great watching Ainsley in that situation.
Yeah. But I also think as well with that improv that when he's been shown it, he's gone, oh, feck. And he's gone, I've got to go with this. You know what I mean? So he knows as soon as he's gone like that, he's gone, they swapped this. But he's got to stay in character. And
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he's not that stupid. He's gone, right, I need to play on this.
Yeah. And so there's more Ainsley dancing when they do a squeeze of lime. There's spring onions and yogurts. And I love that there's constantly cuts to how mortified Kachansky is.
That seems one of the most realist things in the whole show is she's realised, I may be acting right now, but I've got to eat this.
Yeah. Chloe Annette legitimately has to actually eat what the fuck she's seeing in front of her. So I'm not sure that's acting or that's genuine.
Yeah, and, there's things Crichton's banging things off of Craig Charles's head and it's going in the bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's cutting that knife. There's a bit where I would see where Danny John Jules he's using the knife and he goes too far with the cucumber, and it's like you are wielding a knife in the air, and Barry's having to grab it. And it's like, oh, that is a real knife. It's not a fake one. He's been cutting with it. That's what I mean by the health and safety standards just wouldn't allow it.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right. They'd probably have to do some kind of subtle cut or something. They could still do it, but it wouldn't be as organic.
Yeah.
Food pun. I did a food pun. I didn't mean to do a food pun. I'm not that clever. So they serve up, and Ainsley's really excited. The crew are as hapless as ever. Lister adds a tree of parsley to his, which I've just howled at. And Rimmer has stolen Ainsley's pot. Ainsley has another tantrum.
The realisation when it comes to Ainsley, he's realised that that's his pot. It's absolutely, and you can see it. It's the reaction of Chris Barry's face of oh shit, he's genuinely angry.
So we get the classic line, it's time to tickle those taste buds, and Ainsley's dance is copied by all, and we hear the lovely jingle. And I think that Kachansky being petrified is not just Kachansky being petrified.
Yeah.
I think it's Chloe Annette being petrified for this fucking taste test. I wouldn't want to play.
I mean, look at it. It's just to be honest, Rimmer and Dwayne's doesn't look too bad. It looks like they've tried but failed.
Yeah.
But the Lister Crichton one, it's like, my God.
It's wretched, isn't it?
Well, the thing as well, the fact that they've blindfolded her, and then the way Craig Charles like scoops up that massive spoon, and she can hear the laughter, and she's literally going, "Oh no!" And then Ainsley pulls that joke, doesn't he? It's like, we're talking about what did he say?
It's just because Rimmer's picked his nose.
Yeah, because Rimmer's picked his nose, and she's like, "Oh," like that. It's just the fact that it's so much that she knows something's not right, something's going to happen.
I hope she got a bonus for this, because this is a shitty gig.
It made me think, because I think she only really sort of takes a bit of sauce, because part of me was like, dare they give her chicken? Is it cooked? But it's. I mean, the Craig Charles and Robert one just looks gross. It's just revolting.
Yeah, it really does look horrible.
Yeah.
The tree made me laugh, but oh dear.
It's just paste, isn't it?
So, I mean, obviously it looks awful, and unfortunately I think poor Chloe Annette does legitimately have to eat it, but it is a plot, because she pukes out the waste disposal. And then we get a very interesting CGI planet. A starbug passes by and puke flies out. There's a lot of puke for one girl.
Well, look at what she just ate.
Yeah. When she does go to that sex scene, you can tell she's acting. It goes in. She goes into Kachansky at that point.
Yeah.
So it's all right. It's fine.
I mean, looking at the three all together, Ainsley's doesn't look particularly appetizing.
Well, that's because Rimmer swapped some of the stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ainsley's original one looked dead nice. I'd totally eat that.
Yeah, it's just Chloe Annette's face. You get the hint she's trying to act going into it, but no, it's genuine terror. And I mean, there's Craig Charles. I thought he was pretending, but he does stick his finger up his nose and then put it on the spoon.
Have you seen that Smeg up when he does? I think it's obviously him playing up to it in the Smeg up, but he kind of goes, saving this one for after.
Yeah.
And then he flicks it, and I think it's Crichton catches it off screen. He kind of does the thing. It's a great Smeg up moment.
Yeah, the timing of that is perfect.
And I think that's exactly the kind of ad-libbing and camaraderie that we've been talking about has been ad-libbed during this.
Yeah. It's funny when you see Ainsley's going to give her the Lister Crichton one. You can see Chris Barry is looking at Chloe Annette like, you poor sod. And almost in a, couple of series ago, this would have been me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the winners are Rimmer and Dwayne. No surprise there, really.
No.
And then we get the credits, which is the classic style of ending from Can't Cook, Won't Cook, where there's eating and chatting and the credits roll. But of course, it wouldn't be Red Dwarf without a little bit of a twist, and Lister and Rimmer both puke.
Yeah, it was weird because when I initially saw it was like, written by Doug Naylor and Paul Alexander, and all of the crew were there and all this kind of thing. I almost thought, has this just been copied and pasted from an episode? Because you'd think that they'd just use the crew from Ready Steady Cook because they know how to, do it live and things like that. But apparently not.
I'll just correct myself as well, because on the fandom page that I was on, it said it was Rob Grant, Doug Naylor, and Paul Alexander, but on the credits it says just Doug Naylor and Paul Alexander. So I've obviously read it from the fandom page, but that's not quite
S
right.
Club 7 seeing doubles Paul Alexander.
Oh, gents, do you know what? I remember watching this at the time, and I remember enjoying it, but like I said, I'd had some lagers. This blew me away, how funny it was. I just loved it.
Yeah. Cat's chopping, for me, is the thing I remember the most. As my quotable Red Dwarf for this episode, it's that for me. Whenever I thought about this episode, this special, I always remember Dwayne Dibley doing that.
For me, it's. I think the star of the entire piece is Ainsley.
Yeah,
It's for obviously the crew of Red Dwarf. They're used to working together every single day when they're filming the series and things like that, and they've had the years of that. But for Ainsley to just drop in there, it's flawless. If it is a performance, and it is a performance, but if it's a planned performance, it's perfect. It is like the best guest star you could get for an episode.
Oh, I agree. I think Ainsley was just a shining star in this, and he's not really done much acting to my knowledge, but he was great as the Kinatawawi chief, and he was outstanding here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's mostly does his recipes and stuff now, doesn't he? He's mostly got food projects and things like that. His couscous is lovely.
It is.
Yeah.
And this is very freely available on YouTube. If you haven't watched Can't Smeg, Won't Smeg, you really should, because it's just great fun. It's daft as fuck, but it's just so much fun.
Yeah. It's definitely it's free and loose. It's got your Red Dwarf humour. It's got some weird things in it, but it's just, something I wouldn't necessarily go back to very often, but it's really, really something that you can, I haven't seen that for ages. I'm going to put that on and watch it for half an hour. A bit of fun. And then that's the way it's been intended as well. So I think it's great. I think it's great we've got it.
Looking here, I had a quick look. This is the kind of last telly acting job he did before it was just all chefing. Although he did do the Rocky Horror Show live as the narrator. But this was his last sort of scripted thing before he just went fully into chefs.
Yeah, fair enough. So, gentlemen, I've had a lovely time, and I hope everyone else has too. Where can people find you on the internet, Carl?
You can find me and everything I'm up to at allmylinks.com /Mr. Carl.
You are so concise. Kurt, what about you?
I'm going to be really concise as well. My Twitter handle is @rmuldrake. Find out what I'm doing there. There is things happening. They've all been recorded quite some time ago because I've been on a bit of a break. So this is a great episode for me to come back to start my podcast recording back up again, because I've had a couple of months off. So thank you for having me on the special. And I think my next recording might be a Red Dwarf one. So I'm looking forward to getting back into podcasting. But yeah, find me on @rmuldrake on Twitter.
All right, if we're only just doing our own personal ones, you can find me at MarkAdamsHC on Twitter and Instagram. That is kind of like my worky profile, but I do mention podcasting occasionally there. So thank you for joining us for this special episode of Shipwrecked and Comatose. And until next time,
Shut up! Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at WeMadeThisPod.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Elsewhere on We Made This. Free with this month's issue.
This is Deicide and Serpents of the Light with the satanic squirrel shooter Glenn Benton.
With his Beatles collection.
Yes, he spent most of the 90s insisting that he was going to kill himself at the age of 33, because that's the age that Jesus died and he wanted to be the satanic equivalent, but he unsurprisingly changed his mind at the end of the 90s, and he'll be 54 in June.
Yes. Also, he's stopped burning inverted crosses into his head now.
Well, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
I think it would hurt.
I think that's a generic good idea, isn't it? Not just for him.
Generally, yeah. It's not something I recommend. I absolutely fucking hated this at the time, and I quite like it now. I've really enjoyed listening to it. I think I might listen to more Deicide.
It's no Once Upon a Cross, but it is still, pretty good.
The time is now. A Millennium podcast.
And then it's this weird militant group that sees itself as patriotic when in fact they're using religion, nationalism, whatever to cover absolutely, the murders of innocent people. And certainly if you look at where we went as a culture in the 2000s, where we said basically to the world, it's okay for us to launch preemptive wars against people. If you're even, if you're not with us, you're with the terrorists. And if we think you're going to do something, listen, you don't have to attack us. We're going to attack you first.
The giddy carousel of pop.
The design is so important to Smash Hits, I think. Just, the colours, the bright reds and the oranges and the greens, it's classic late 80s design. I think it just looked fun. I remember seeing it on the shelf, and I remember I had 50p pocket money, and I'm sure the 48p cover price at the time was thought out. That was thought out for the kids who had 50p pocket money, so they could get something, feel like they have 2p left for 2 sweets. But as soon as I got it and took it home and opened it, it was like I'd found my gang. I'd found my world. I was there. It was great. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I really can. I really can.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.